Hi everyone, get ready for part 4, which is going to be taking the stock piston and the valve. I'm going to stuff the piston with some rod, give it a spacer with a brass washer and O-ring, and then I'm going to shave the tip of the valve down in steps. I think it's going to end up being about 4/1000ths of an inch, somewhere around there. I'll measure it as we go. You do the tip because after you put you stuff the piston and you put a washer spacer in there, it changes the stroke length just a tiny bit. So you need to grind the valve tip down to match. And what it also does is makes the edges of the stock cup contact the valve before the tip, so it ends up compressing towards the center to get more air into the valve. So stuffing the valve is a power mod, which is what this is all about. So we're going to start with that. So that means new baseline measurements. So I'm going to take 10-shot Chrono groups, 10-shot Chrono string with 10 pumps, 15 pumps, and then 20 pumps to see what numbers we get there. And then we're going to go back and do the same thing again after the piston and valve modifications. Right, let's get started. Okay, 10 shots at 10 pumps. Okay, 10 shots at 15 pumps. That last one might have been 16 pumps. Alright, now 10 shots at 20 pumps. Okay, 10 shots at 25 pumps. Okay, let's see if it retains air after 25. No, full dump, 25 pumps. Okay, let's go to 30. First I'm going to clear the chamber. Okay, 10 shots, 30 pumps. Okay, so 5 shots at 30 pumps was enough. Seeing that after the first shot at 30, the rest of them were right in there with 25 pumps. So the extra 5 pumps, with the considerable extra elbow effort it takes to get those extra 5 pumps, it's not worth going over 25 for the 1 to 2 FPS increase. You don't see any difference in performance that way. Okay, so the difference between 10 pumps and 25 pumps was 107.9 FPS on average, and an average increase of 3.48 foot-pounds. So just going past the recommended 10 pumps from Crosman up to the 25 pumps, gave over 100 FPS of increase, which is substantial, and gave, almost 3.5 foot-pounds. So that's stock parts. I haven't done anything to it yet. So the recommended pumping is good for plinking, which is what this gun was really intended for. But if you're going to go higher on the pumps like I am, you definitely need to switch out this pivot pin. Like I said before, because the stresses that's put on the gun at 25 pumps are far greater than at 10. So if you have the stock pin, it's going to wear out. And I may even look into another pump arm, because the stock one is likely going to wear out on me pretty quick. Okay, so just want to go over that. Make sure you realize what's going on when you're putting that many more pumps into the gun, and why Crosman recommends 10 pumps. They didn't originally design this gun for high pressure. Alright, see you later. Okay, so now I've made some piston and valve modifications. Originally, I was going to stuff this piston with some rod. Then I took it apart, took a closer look, noticed that the new pistons have this curve here where the pump arm attaches. I didn't see an easy way to get rod to hold there, so no stuffing. But this plastic material that they're using now seems to be pretty darn rigid to begin with, so we'll just see how it goes. If I have to, I'll figure out another way to stuff it, or I'll just end up buying an aftermarket piston. So we'll see. Alright, so the pump cup end, what I did is I pulled the cup out, took a 0.004 of an inch thick brass washer, stuck in there, pushed the cup back in as far as I could get it. Now it doesn't fit the same way as it did originally, so I had to drill a tiny hole through the pump body and the cup and pin it. Got it both sides. Then that left the gap between the cup and the piston even wider than before, so I went through my O-ring collection and found an O-ring that measured out slightly smaller than the cup, slightly larger than the piston body, original sizing, and then stretched it over and slid it into the gap, pressed it in there. Fits pretty nice. So that's to take care of the extra gap from the cup edge to the piston body, so that your edges aren't compressing too far. Another note on compression: now that we're 4 mils thick, that makes your cup stroke, or your stroke length, not 4 mils, 0.004 longer. So that lockup at the bottom, right when you get your pump arm to lock, that's going to require more force, because you added length to the piston, but I haven't adjusted the stroke length anywhere else except for that. Alright, so because of the 0.004 inch increase in the piston, I shaved and sanded the end of the valve by 0.004. No other changes other than that, just adjusting the cone tip length. That's it. So, go put it together and do some Chrono testing. 10 shots, 10 pumps. 10 shots, 15 pumps. Ten shots, 20 pumps. Ten shots, 25 pumps. Ten shots, 30 pumps. Okay, so with the pump extended with just the washer spacer behind the pump cup and shaving the valve tip down by 4/1000ths of an inch, looks like the gun tops out at 30 pumps with an average of 581.63 feet per second. It generates 10.74 FPE with that 14.3 grain pellet I'm testing with. So that means to get to my 12 FPE goal, I need another 33.04 feet per second out of the gun. So we've already got significant improvement over just the baseline. I mean, at 30 pumps without any additional modifications to the piston or the valve, we were at 564.3 FPS on 30 pumps. So, you know, a gain of almost 17, 18 feet per second just by making the piston 4/1000ths of an inch longer. That's big. So now that we've made additional modifications to the piston, now I've stuffed it with some rod. Got some 1/8 inch weld rod from the hardware store. Measured the gap in the piston from the shoulder down at the piston cup up to where it has that curved portion at where it pins onto the pump arm. I took the weld rods, I cut them slightly longer than the about 2/1000ths of an inch longer than that space was. I used an engraving tool on my Dremel to put a little dimple in that curved portion at the shoulder where the pump arm attaches, so that the rod would have somewhere to hold on to. And I cut an angle on each end of the rods so that it would have something to help it grip the plastic. So I got those pressed in there using my vise and some pliers. Got them in. So now we've got the stuffed piston, the extended with the 4/1000ths inch thick brass washer, the valve tip shaved. That's the extent of the modification so far. So now, Crony strings. I'm going to go 10 pumps, 20 pumps, 30 pumps, and then after that it'll be 35 or 40. I think I'm going to skip straight to 40, and then if it's not a significant increase over 30, I'll do 35 to see if that's the actual top. Alright, here we go. 10 shots at 10 pumps. Ten shots, 20 pumps. Okay, preliminary testing has shown me that 30 pumps starts retaining air after the first shot. So here's an example. 30 pumps, one shot. Okay, now one shot, 0 pumps. See, retaining air. 10 shots, 30 pumps. And I'll be dumping the retained air after each shot. Okay, let's see the retained air on 40 shots. So 40 shots, or 40 pumps, one shot. Zero pumps, one shot. See, there's a significant amount of retained air there. In fact, that retained air was more than 10 pumps worth. 10 shots, 40 pumps, we'll be dumping the retained air in between each shot. Alright, looks like now with the stuffed piston we top out at 40 pumps over the 30 pumps we were with just the spacer put in there. So, now at 40 pumps we're averaging 589.08 with foot-pounds of 11.02. Much closer. Only one more foot-pound to get, and that means I need another 25.59 FPS on average to reach 12 foot-pounds. So, next thing to do is I'm going to take it all apart again, get that valve out, and see what I can do for valve modifications. I'm going to start with trying to improve increase the volume of the valve by cutting down some of the threads when you put it together, because it's got quite a few threads there that aren't necessarily needed. So I'm going to cut 2, maybe 3 threads worth off of it. That'll increase the internal capacity of the valve. I'm going to see about I'm going to increase the valve exhaust port. I'm going to make it larger, out to probably 0.165, 1.17 inches. We'll see, because that poly tube that we tried in a previous video, its internal diameter is 0.17 inches. So if you match your valve to that, it allows better flow through than if you just leave it as the stock exhaust port size. We'll get into all that more in detail into the next video, but the next portion. So now it's time to take the valve apart and start fiddling around with that and see what we can get. Alright, so the velocities I'm getting on this portion of the stuffed piston Chrono strings are lower than they would be if I were in the same weather conditions as I was previously in the video, because we've had a turn in the weather in between the sections of the video, and it's gotten much colder. It's 25 to 30 degrees colder now than when I filmed the previous 2 Chrono strings in this video. There it was between 50 and 60 degrees for those, and now it's 25, 30 out right now doing this Chrono string. So, as you know, temperature affects pneumatic guns. So, in the summertime when it's nice and warm out, I'd be getting velocities a little bit higher. That's the unfortunate part about having to do all my filming outside. Weather impacts everything, so it's harder to control my environment. But it's more real world, because who really does a lot of their shooting on the inside? I know I don't. I do most of my shooting outside, so that's where I like to do my testing. Right. Just wanted to put that out there, that because the temperature differences, velocities are lower. Right. Later.